Okay, good evening, guys. In accordance with Government Code Section 551, I'll now call this meeting of the School Health Advisory Council to order at 4:33 p.m. I would like to thank you all for being here and for being part of this committee.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Shields, our secretary. We have our new chair and our new secretary. Here.
Good afternoon. We are here to review the minutes from our last meeting, which was held on October 23rd at 4:30 p.m. here in the Duncanville ISD boardroom located here at 710 South Cedar Ridge Drive, Duncanville, Texas. You have the minutes have been posted and you have them here in front of you. I'm not going to read them verbatim. However, I am going to pause to give you a minute to review and look over the minutes. If you do have a question, please do not hesitate to ask down. Are there any questions? Okay, looks like we are all in agreement. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so our next activity, welcome again to the SHAC meeting. Thank you to everybody who is here. We are going to do an activity where we are going to review our SHAC bylaws. And so I am just going to ask you to work with people at your group, at least in groups of 3 to 4. So if you're at a table where you don't have that, if you can move with somebody, at least of groups 3 to 4, and we are going to take about 10 minutes to review the SHAC bylaws. So in the center of your table, we have the SHAC bylaws, and if everybody can kind of grab a copy of these there in the center of their table, and I'm just kind of want to walk you through the document and some things that we need to be looking at. They have not been revised in several years, and so we may need revisions in some areas, and then we may not. And of course, when it comes to official revisions, that will come from the SHAC members, but we definitely want SHAC guests to also give their input and feedback because you are part of this process as well. And so we have the responsibilities on page 1. The second page pretty much outlines the process for meetings. The third page outlines, terms of service, conflicts of interest. These are standard areas that are required by bylaws by the state of Texas. We're supposed to talk about when meetings are held, how members are selected. Members are appointed by our school board, so we don't necessarily elect members, but we can elect officers from those school board appointed members, so I wanted to talk about that. And then our board policy states that we must have 5. So board policy legally, the Texas Education Code only states that we have to have 5 members. So those are some of the things to take into consideration. And it just talks about the role of the committee members. So the bylaws are not very long, very detailed, but I wanted to give you about 10 minutes to skim them, think about it. If there are any recommendations for changes, then I want you to write those on a sticky note. One change, what section, what page number, if there are any recommendations that you have, you can write that on a sticky note, and then we are going to collect those and put those on the chart paper here. And so we can talk about those whole group, why maybe the changes, if you recommended why things are the way they are, to look at them, and then we will come back at the next meeting and based on the SHAC committee's recommendations, make any update to the bylaws as needed. So just kind of looking through the bylaws, what they say, and just seeing or if there are any recommended changes. And so if you have no changes, you will state no changes. And if you do, again, the page number or the section just reading through it. So I am going to put on a timer. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes, and during this 10 minutes, that's to read through it and to write any sticky notes. But just kind of discuss it with your group, because sometimes they may have an understanding of why things are the way they are, and I'm going to kind of walk around and facilitate in this process as well. Are there any questions about what we're about to do? So you're just going to write them on a sticky note, and then we're going to compile them here and talk about them as a group as far as SHAC bylaws. Okay, and so I may have to ask for clarification on some of these. The first sticky note says Article 2, Section C. Does high risk include drugs and alcohol? Should it read tobacco, drug, and alcohol? So let's look at Section 2C and see if we need to discuss any of those things. Should it include, it's asking for a definition of high risk. High risk can mean a lot of things. I'm reading 2C. High risk behaviors. And then it says, can it include drugs and alcohol in addition to tobacco? I see no reason why it could not say tobacco, drugs, and alcohol. I have no problem. And so in education, high risk can include a lot of things. It's a big umbrella because you can't really name every risky behavior. If there was something that was missing that was outlined, it would probably be better to, because it's giving examples of high risk, it's saying drugs, alcohol. It's kind of hard to define high-risk behavior and do a catch-all definition. That could be drug abuse, it could be criminal activity, it could be sexual activity. So high-risk has a broad term, but it could all be health-related, even when it comes to school discipline, bullying, things of that nature. So if there wanted to be someone to help come up with a broad term of high risk, we have at-risk students. We have a definition of that from the state, but that's a little bit different than we could define it. But I definitely don't see any reason why we could not add drugs and alcohol to that. No, I was keep it, but somebody was asking, does it mean drugs and alcohol? And I'm just saying high risk is very broad. Because if you're a high-risk student, it could be at risk of not just drugs and alcohol. Like I said, it could be for sexual behavior. It could be high risk of suicidal behavior. It could be at risk for getting involved in criminal activity. It could be, if you're a high risk, it's not limited to drugs. And so that's what I'm saying. But we most definitely can add drugs and alcohol since high risk does not have that label. So are there any objections to that? Okay. The second sticky note says Article 3, Section 5, non-attendance for 2 consecutive meetings. It says a suggested change, but it does not say what the change. Okay. Article 3, Section 5. Oh, it says 3 consecutive meetings, non-attendance for, 2 consecutive. They're only, so if you've missed 50% of the meetings, right, that a person would be, kind of removed. So may result in removal. And it still says may, so there's always, if somebody had a medical concern and the SHAC was aware of that or some special, if they made the chair aware of some special circumstance, that was preventing them, then of course the executive committee could always take that into consideration. But they're saying consider may remove for non-attendance for 2 meetings instead of 3. Are there any thoughts? 2 out of 4 is 50%, so 2, and it's consecutive, so it's not even 2 for the year. They're just saying you've missed 2 back to back. Okay, so we're fine with that recommendation. Okay. This next section says Article 4, A and B are similar. So turning to Article 4, let me find where we are. Sorry. Okay, so I wanted to explain this one. The majority of the SHAC committee, if we have, the board policy says we only have to have 5 members. The majority of the SHAC committee has to be parents who are not employees by law. Our bylaws say that we don't want any parent employees, but that's not what the state says. So that was one of the other sticky notes up here. The law says as long as the majority of the parents that are on the committee do not work for the district, then they're the majority. So right now we have 6 parents and 4 employees that are part of the SHAC committee. And out of the 6 parents, 5 are not employees or not affiliated with the district in any way. And so therefore we would meet the majority. So, but that is one of the areas in which we are considering. So they're a little bit different. So B is saying that you can't be employed. The majority of the SHAC, A is what the state says. So let me say that. So on page 2 at the bottom, section 4, A is what the state says. So that part we cannot change. That is the language from the state of Texas, Texas Education Code. The part that we can change is B. Now we are an open enrollment district, and so we do want parents that are Duncanville parents to be able to be a part of the SHAC part. That was the reason we don't want people from DeSoto or Garland or Mesquite, or things like that, even though their children are welcome to attend our district. That was written in the bylaws that they must be a Duncanville resident. The part where we may want to consider is where it's saying parents may also be employees of the district. So that is one of the recommendations from the change. And so I don't know. Yeah. So we have to follow the state rule of we can't have all parent/employees, because non-employee parents have to make up the majority per the state. But that doesn't mean we have to eliminate any parent-employee. Does that make sense? So as long as we're in compliance with the state, that doesn't mean we're eliminated. We just don't want employees to run it. So is everybody okay with that saying yes? Cannot be employees. Both ways, cannot be employees either. So actually, that would probably be a good sentence. The majority of SHAC parents and the majority of SHAC members cannot be employees, because both of those statements are true. Okay? And so, and that's when it comes to voting power. It's very rare that the SHAC actually votes on something. It's kind of guide and recommended and discussion, and that's why we have other guests that are critical to the SHAC. Child nutrition, athletics, other people, teachers. We want campus input, but when it would come to voting power, then it would be limited to members, guest presenters. So I'm making a note. We could reword it so it's not confusing and so that it doesn't sound the same. That's what I'm hearing. That I don't know who wrote that, but it does sound the same. Whoever wrote the sticky note, I can see what you meant. So we can just reword it to say the majority cannot be employees, and the parents cannot be employees. And that would eliminate the sentence that a parent employee cannot participate if we reworded it to be that. Is everybody, and these, we're not, the revisions will be presented at the next meeting. People will be able to review before they were voted on. So, okay, thank you. This one was already addressed. It's a duplicate. It was talking about parent employees. We also have Article 2. Add Article 2, Section A. We could flip to that. Oh, it said to add the 4, just to clarify. On the second page, on page 2, it says there are 4 regular meetings. But when it says to hold regular meetings, the clarification was add, can we just put 4 there as well, to hold 4 regular meetings, which is required by law. We can always have 1,000,000 meetings, right? But the law says we can meet every week if we want, but the law just says that we are required to have 4, so that clarification was just added. Is anybody opposed? That clarification, just so it can be clear. Now you can, when they say regular, I just wanted, because there was a good question asked about that. For example, if there were another pandemic, God forbid, or something serious happened and the SHAC had to make some special recommendation to the board, like if the Texas Education Code said the SHAC had to make a recommendation to the board before the board take action. Like last year we recommended human sexuality and health curriculum and all of that. Then you could call a special session, right? Oh, our next meeting is not scheduled to February, but the board has to get this improved by January. We have to have a special meeting. Those are special call meetings. So I'm glad that question was asked. That was a good question. Yep. So we can do that. Okay, and so then these three, there are three other sticky notes. They're pretty much saying the same thing, and it's about the size of the SHAC council. This is Article 4, Section 8, the size of the council. Right now, we have 10 official SHAC members. The SHAC was huge. And you can have as many community members and health professionals and invite all these, people from outside, and that's great. But remember, the law says parents have to make up the what? Majority, right? So if we invite all of these external stakeholders, they can come and present as guests. They can give input. But with the official membership, parents always have to outweigh general members, whether they're community members, business owners, because I know we have Tom Thumb representing here, the pharmacists on our committee, we have some external nurses, other partnerships. They're part of the committee, but they're not official members. And so board policy says the superintendent only has to appoint 5 members, so you really only need 5 SHAC members total. So ideally, you could have 3 parents and 2 employees. But of course, we don't want to limit it to 5. Our board policy says it should not exceed 35. Some other districts say we won't exceed 20. We want to see 27, just so it's not out of control, right? If it gets to be too big of a group, it may be difficult to make decisions when the SHAC has to do that. And so it's recommendations based on the size of the council. So the no less than 15. So right now we're saying no less than 15 members, which means at all given times we would have to have guaranteed 8 parents, 7 other minimum. We can always go more, but is that feasible is that something that, do we want to limit, do we want to put that minimum required on ourselves when the law says we only have to have 5? So we can always exceed the law. We're exceeding the law now. We can always go beyond and be greater. We can always encourage more and more parents to participate, but do we want to limit or restrict ourselves? So that's the question about, do we want to just say a maximum of 35 and be in alignment with the state policy? Is everybody okay with that? Okay. So that is the last of the recommendations. Is there anything else that I did not cover or get the opportunity to review? Yes, sir.
So for the minimum on that, we were saying to change that to a minimum of 5 members and then a maximum of 35. Yeah.
Anybody else have any feedback or any other feelings about the bylaws? We will come up with a draft proposal for you all to review at the next meeting, and then the official members would vote on that. Okay. If there are no other questions, that is the end of my portion with the bylaws. And next up, we have restorative practices and discipline updates from Ms. Tawana Hudson. I'll let her tell a little about what she does for the district.
Hello, everybody. My name's Tawana Hudson, and I serve as the Director of Student Management and Restorative Practices here in the district. And I'm going to just be before you for a little bit of time to tell you about what restorative practices are and what we do in the district. So I want to start by letting you know that I have the honor and the privilege of overseeing a team of 5 individuals who serve all of the campuses throughout Duncanville ISD. So some of you who are district employees, I'm sure you've seen some of these individuals around the district. So I want to give you a little bit of information about our team and what we do to support all students in Duncanville ISD and all campuses. The big majority of our role is training. We train teachers in restorative practices, ways to build relationships with students, making sure that they have clear-cut classroom management strategies and that they are proactive in implementing those strategies so that they can reduce any behavior issues that they may have in their classrooms. But the other piece of our role is to support those teachers. So we do in-class coaching with teachers who have classroom management needs. We also support campuses if there are students who are in need of behavior support plans. We help campuses develop those plans, and then we help the teachers to implement those plans. Because what we know is that relationships truly matter with students. You all are parents, and so you have probably experienced before those teachers that your students have had that have really great relationships with, and then some teachers that you may not have had really great relationships with your students, and seeing the difference between how your student responds in those situations. And so our goal in our department is to ensure that we equip every teacher in Duncanville ISD with the tools that they need to be able to foster those relationships with your students so that they have a successful school year. So I want you to know that a part of how Duncanville ISD views discipline is teaching. We want to make sure that we are teaching the students the skills that they need to be successful in the classroom. And research has shown that when restorative practices are implemented on campuses, it improves relationships between teachers and students, and it also helps to reduce any discipline infractions that may occur in a classroom or on a campus. And so for Duncanville ISD, we have a goal to reduce the amount of punitive disciplinary actions that we have in the district. And when I say punitive, I mean those ISS, OSS, and DAEP summit placements. And so for this school year, we have a goal of a 15% reduction in the use of those three punitive disciplinary actions. We want to instead use more restorative actions to address any discipline problems that we may have in a classroom. So I want to let you know that some of those practices look a little bit like this. I want to give you an example of what restorative practices are. And hopefully we have sound. Nope. Let's try that again.
All characteristics in life are changing dramatically around the globe, diminishing social bonds within families, schools, workplaces, and communities. But humans are hardwired to connect. Just as we need food, shelter, and clothing, we also need strong and meaningful relationships to thrive. With all this in mind, what is restorative practices? Restorative practices is an emerging social science that studies how to strengthen relationships between individuals and within communities. When put into practice, the effects are profound. In schools, students experience greater safety and sense of belonging, resulting in improved behavior, less bullying, and less violence. In workplaces, leaders facilitate direct communication among staff and address conflict as it arises. The result is higher performance, greater accountability, and effective collaboration. In criminal justice, new options allow victims and offenders, friends and family, to repair the emotional harm caused by crime. Throughout our neighborhoods, restorative practices give regular people more voice in the issues that matter most. In a nutshell, restorative practices is the science of relationships and community. Your individual daily interactions have a big impact on the world around you, at your job, with young people, and throughout your community. How we relate matters. This video was brought to you by the International Institute for Restorative Practices. To learn more, attend our flagship event, Basic Restorative Practices, enroll in a graduate course, or join us. Our world is changing at a breathtaking.
All right. So that gives you a very brief overview about restorative practices. Just like they said in the video, in a nutshell, it's the science of relationship. So our team has done lots and lots and lots of professional development with our staff so that they have that mindset shift, that discipline, behavior, all is a form of communication with people. And how can we foster those relationships with our students in our classrooms so that we can mitigate any discipline problems that we might have? And because students are students and there are going to be times where they have to be corrected for misbehavior, how can we do that in the most restorative manner so that the student still walks away with dignity and the lesson has been taught about that misbehavior? So these are just a few pictures that I've pulled out just of some of the trainings that we've done throughout the school year. The picture at the top shows a bulletin board that is housed on every campus so that teachers have quick access with a QR code to see what our next professional development trainings will be. They have quick tips and tools that they can just scan their phones and pull up some relationship tools and tips. We want it to be very accessible to the staff so that they have what they need. And then we also give staff opportunities to experience restorative practices themselves. And so one of those pictures shows some staff members who are actually experiencing what a restorative circle looks like. What we have learned is when you experience it yourself and you see the benefit of it, you're more prone to implement that thing within your classroom. And so I wanted to let you know that the district goal of a 15% reduction in punitive discipline for this school year is the exact same goal that we had last school year. Our school year last year, we did not quite reach the 15% reduction, but I'm very happy to say that we had an 11% reduction in punitive discipline last school year. And 53% of our campuses district-wide did reach that 15% reduction goal. And at the end of last school year, a little less than half of the disciplinary infractions that happened on campus were responded to in a restorative manner. And when I say restorative manner, that might be a conference with the principal or a parent conference. It might be a behavior contract or a behavior intervention plan. It could look like peer mediation or a teacher and a student sitting down to resolve an issue. But a little less than half of the discipline actions that were taken last year were restorative in nature. There are some discipline updates because of the law this school year that will affect our discipline data in Duncanville ISD. House Bill 114 was passed as of September 1st, which now states that students who have marijuana, THC, or any part of an e-cigarette, whether it has something in it, whether it's tobacco, whether it's just empty, if a student is in possession of this, it is a mandatory DAEP placement. And that is the law now. And so, of course, that gives some implications for us on our campuses. We anticipate that there may be an increase in DAP placements this year based on this new law. And then there's also a stipulation that the law says that we realize that this new law may put the DAP at a strain with capacity, the number of students that are there. And so they have made provisions for students who have a part of an e-cigarette and it didn't have anything in it, that they may be able to serve that placement in an ISS setting if the DAP is too full. But again, that's still an implication on a campus where they'd have to make arrangements for ISS placements in that event. But I did want to make you aware of that new law. You should have seen some social media communication from the district about that. Yes, ma'am. It rolled out. It has rolled out. September 1st. September 1st. Yes, ma'am. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention as a SHAC committee because this does potentially affect our discipline data for Duncanville ISD. But we still have that same goal. We still want to continue to build on our restorative practices. We want to make sure that we are addressing situations that aren't required by law to be sent to DAEP in a manner that does not go to an ISS or an OSS. So I will let you know that even though that new law went into effect on September 1st, these are our discipline highlights for the first 9 weeks of school. We have already seen an 18% decrease in punitive actions district-wide from the first 9 weeks of last school year. So for the first 9 weeks, we're already trending better than we were last school year, first 9 weeks. I'm also very happy to report that 2 of our campuses in the district have gotten recognition from TEA for their restorative practices implementation, and that's Alexander Elementary and Smith Elementary. And so that's something that we're very proud of. And then we do give restorative rewards to campuses at the end of each 9 weeks. There are certain criteria that campuses have to meet to get that reward. And 6 of our campuses for the first 9 weeks received a reward for their restorative efforts, which is a 500% increase from last school year. during the first 9 weeks. So we only had one campus last year that received a reward first 9 weeks, and we had 6 campuses this year. And so even though we are tied to some stipulations with the law, Duncanville ISD is still pushing on with restorative practices. We are going to continue to manage discipline in a manner that helps teachers to continue to build those relationships with students, but also to help students learn the error of their ways so that we can fix the behavior. Because we all know that a punishment doesn't always fix the behavior. We've got to get some teaching around that as well. And so my last slide before I sit down is to just shout out those campuses. So if you have a student that attends one of these campuses, these are the 6 campuses that receive restorative rewards for the first 9 weeks. And so Bill Hart and Merrifield did not have any ISS, OSS, or DAEP placements in the first 9 weeks of school. And then the campuses at the bottom all had a 50% or more as they had discipline infractions. 50% or more of their actions that they took were restorative in nature. And that's all I have.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maylene Grant. I'm the district nurse for Duncanville ISD. Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm going to go over our wellness plan. And at your tables, you all have a pamphlet with the wellness plan. And I divided you all up, group 1, group 2. It's on your table. So when I get to that point, there will be the goals that we will look at. And at the time, I gave group 5, 5, and 6, but I'm going to ask our presenters to look at goal 6. So our wellness policy, we follow the state and federal nutritional guidelines that advances students' health and promote the wellness of all students grades pre-K through 12. We include nutrition education, physical education, and other school-based activities. So the wellness plan promotes students' health. We try to prevent and reduce childhood obesity. And then we provide nutritional educational materials. If you go into some of our schools, you'll see posters from child nutrition posted up in the nurse's office and also in the cafeterias. So at this time, we're going to review the wellness plan, and I'm going to ask you all to look at the wellness plan that's on your table. Again, you're divided into groups. Look at those plans and look at your goal and see is there anything that stands out to you, any questions that come to mind, any suggestions or anything that you may, something you may not understand or something that may just pique an interest. And then you can write them on the sticky note, and we'll share out in just a few minutes. just filing down, huh? They just filing down?
But I'm gonna just take, put it on.
Okay. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, sometimes like combos are very clear and right here. Like sometimes they try to mix in like yogurt with beef nachos and cheese.
The breakfast that they do is the egg that they do for dessert. But
So it's the combinations that they don't like.
but again, we are talking about 2023 children, right? I remember you mix ketchup and mayonnaise to get a sauce.
Eat what's in front of me.
And parents bring it more too. I was like, I didn't get that first. No, we're just talking. We're on roll too. It's actually good. I love school.
That's what you're saying.
Like as a mom, I would look at it too.
Okay, so group one, did you all see anything that, okay, you're good? Group two, anything stands out? Any questions you may have? I heard you all say that you like school cafe?
Oh yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I love school cafe because I get the look. Yeah, it was great. And it's it's convenient. I love the mobile. Yeah.
okay. Group goal three, anything that stands out?
We have several.
Several, okay.
So, with, because the word all is kind of throwing it off because of participation. We know K through 5, those students, all of those participate in physical activity all the time. But when you get to secondary, that's where it kind of drops off because all the students are not in competitive sports. And they only have to have PE in 1 year, and the same for high school.
But you got 3 other years of
You have 3 other school, years of no activity.
Okay.
We offer like cheer, band, and drill, other alternatives, but still those you really have to try out for.
Right.
So it's not really, so it's not access for everyone.
So it's not access fair.
And then we discussed too, because when they get into from high school or secondary to high school, it's when it really starts falling off.
Yeah,
Because
secondary.
they're mandated, and they're younger, they have to.
Yeah,
Okay.
for elementary,
It's
they
not,
have to.
it's not a,
Okay.
get older, they're just like,
So, yeah.
what's the options then, the resources, the substitution?
That, okay.
Yeah. And then say resources, physical activity substitution.
the next 5 years.
So, if,
We're behind.
okay, we'll have to go back and revise. Okay. Y'all have a running score? Will you write that down and then I can take it back and make sure we get it updated? Okay. Goal 4?
This is set up, make appropriate before and
I can't-
after-school physical activity programs available, and shall encourage students to participate. This will be difficult on certain levels. Once again, like Coach Mitchell was just saying, after they get that first year of health physical education, there's no more requirements for them to be physically active. If they're
Okay.
not an athlete or not actively participating in some type of extracurricular activity like band or cheer or ROTC or sports or whatnot,
Right.
then they won't have an opportunity to be physically active. And they won't, let's be honest, they won't seek an opportunity to be physically active.
Okay.
And
update it. We need to meet and update.
I mean, so I don't know what enrichment programs or activities have been done since I've only been here
Right.
for a year.
Right.
So I don't know if that happened, if it didn't. It makes it kind of,
And mainly, it also says the obstacle is transportation. So they need to develop something that they can do at home or wherever they're going.
Videos that they can click on at home.
Like in the newsletter, like videos at home.
This is what
Yes.
see?
Yes,
Yeah, something moving.
that would be good.
if students use their ID or somehow logged in, is it something we could track and we get like points?
Okay.
Maybe like the biggest loser type program.
Yeah, like, I mean, they could just get on there and watch it and not move, but
Right. Or just let it play, let the video play.
maybe some kind of incentive.
Okay, we can try. The subcommittee, okay. Yes.
There was a problem, in Mississippi where we had to do every first period.
Mm-hmm.
The kids would come in and at the beginning of the day, we would put on a video and say, move the line, something like that. And that's what we had to do. Every teacher in the building had to do it. So the kids got some kind of physical movement every day. It wasn't very long, but.
But every day, every morning.
Every day in the first period, we got some kind of physical movement going on. Move the world, move this world.
It's a,
Yeah.
you've heard of that, Pam? Moves, okay.
So we had to move every morning with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Throughout the
it was
district.
district-wide. It was district-wide. Everybody at the in our district had to do that. It was district-wide.
In about 5 minutes?
Yeah, about 5 minutes. The video wasn't long.
Goal 5?
So, first, I understand they're talking about activities, but to me, the school district, I'm gonna say the school district, the state has taken away that credit for PE. So now in high school, you only need what, 1 credit for PE? You know, but now they wanna talk about physical activity. Just add it back to the, make it a requirement. When you take it away, that,
Yeah.
anyway, so anyway.
Yeah, it's a requirement in Mississippi.
Yeah. So, it don't make any sense, but I'm gonna move on to goal number 5.
Okay.
The district shall make appropriate training and other activities available to district employees in order to promote enjoyable, lifelong physical activity for district employees and students. So my deal is this an on-campus thing or off-campus? I mean, cause right now you start thinking about facilities. Where
Right.
are you gonna house all this stuff?
So
Our
we,
membership allow us to have some kind of discount for the membership.
Yeah.
okay.
Everybody get beachbody.com.
So for employees, we've done wellness challenges in campaigns for employees, but we haven't really focused on anything for the students. So that's another goal or another thing that we need to look into is getting something for the students to participate in.
Goal number 6, the district shall allow sufficient time for students to eat meals in cafeteria facilities that are clean, safe, and comfortable. I think we have that pretty much, right?
Yeah.
I think, they have,
I don't think they have enough time, but
You don't?
I'm a nutrition. I realize I'm not the one making meal schedules. And
Right.
they need education, so I'm not at all complaining. I'm just saying, I think sometimes the last kids in the cafeteria struggle with that challenge.
Yeah, that is true, but, and I can write that down and,
I mean, there's suggestions in the state laws for that. They suggest 30 minutes of time to actually sit and eat, but that means 11 to 45 to 50
Right.
minutes. So I know that
Right.
that's not reality.
right, because the further you are back in line, the later you're gonna get your meal, which means the least time you have to eat, so.
And they're called my table, but it's not even like, well, yeah, in the middle, I mean, I think in high school they go, but elementary, like my, our sons, so like, we are.
Right, and you have,
you're not adding time.
Okay, and just to give you all just a update on what we do in health services, we provide CPR and AED training to all staff. We have classes that the staff can register to take those classes, and the majority of our nurses, we have a total of 23 nurses in the district now. Not all of those are filled, but the majority of our nurses are CPR instructors, along with our athletic trainers, and we also have some people in security that are instructors. So we do offer CPR and AED training to our staff. And we also provide basic medical training to our teachers and staff so that if there was an emergency, a medical event that happened, then the nurse has support. She's not the only one, especially if it was a major thing that happened. She's not the only one on campus. Or for campuses that there may not be a nurse on, it's always good to have a reinforcement. So we do teach the basic medical training to our staff. And then Child Nutrition provide information on breakfast and lunch menus. For our diabetic students, they provide the carb so that our nurses or the parents can do the carb counts and know how much insulin that the student needs, or just know how many carbs that student is taking. And then the menus are posted online for parents to see. Okay, we have a subcommittee. So when we were talking about, Alex, raise your hand. Okay, Shaq is required to have a subcommittee. And so we need members to be a part of the subcommittee so that some of the things that we were just speaking about, the physical activity, we can start planning and getting, let me just read. So the Texas Educational Code requires for SHAC to establish a physical activity and fitness planning subcommittee. The purpose of the subcommittee is to consider issues related to student physical activity and fitness and make policies recommendations to increase physical activity and improve fitness among students, and that's what we were just talking about. So these recommendations may be made by the Physical Activity and Fitness Planning Subcommittee. So if anyone wants to be, and Mr. Mitchell, so if anyone else want to be a part of the subcommittee, then you can see Alex or Mr. Mitchell, and we can be able to get a subcommittee going and talk about those spaces, that downtime and physical activity that our students are not getting and what they should be getting. Any questions on that? Right. So safety and security.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, thank you very much. I'm Mari Zamora, Chief Operations Officer, and Chief Lambert, who just stepped out. We're going to cover safety and security updates with you all. I'll start off to share with you all we may have shared this last year, but it is now officially an adopted regulation. Commissioner's rules concerning school facilities. And the way they define school facilities is it's an instructional facility. Basically a building predominantly used for teaching curriculum. So any of our schools, that's where this is what these laws will apply to. So some of the requirements that they said is exterior door numbering. So if you look at any building you see, there's going to be a number on the outside of the building, of the door, and there's a corresponding number on the inside. That's a requirement. Also secure exterior doors. That means every entry door, every classroom, portable roof, all of those need to be locked. And if for some reason there is needs to be open because somebody's bringing something in, it cannot be left open unmanned. It needs to be monitored. We also have to do exterior door sweeps, where every day we're having somebody, typically it's an AP, someone is going around and looking at every door to making sure that it's locked. That's another requirement. The other thing is to have a secure master key lock boxes. So these are basically boxes that are outside of our facility. If emergency management needed to come and go into the buildings, they would go to that lock box and get the master keys to be able to go into a building. All these, of course, you know, this is part of the requirements, especially after what happened in Uvalde. But these are there's a couple more requirements that are in place secured enclosed areas. Basically, our facilities, our instructional facilities, need to have what they call a secured area. And so how they define secured area is it has to have a 6-foot fence if it's got anti-scaling design. So what does that look like? I don't know if you've ever seen chain link fences that have the little slats that go there. That's an example of an anti-scaling designed fence. Now, if it's knife, you either can have that or you can have a fencing that is 8 feet tall. So currently we have an RFP, basically a request for proposal, that will go to the board in January to upgrade all of our fencing to at least 8 feet. We're not going to do the 6 feet anti-scaling. It just doesn't always look great, and then it's not really sustainable. So we're going to go to 8 feet fencing. We're also going to, if you notice some of our campuses, some of our older campuses, the fencing is like 4 feet tall. I mean, it's not even up to, not even 6. We're going to upgrade those. Everything's going to have 6 feet, 8 feet fencing. So what happens to the areas that are not enclosed by the fence? So, for example, our front doors at our schools. There's no fencing there, and there really can't be fencing. So all the windowed doors and all the windows next to those doors have to have an entry-resistant film. And so basically, an entry-resistant film is not bulletproof. It's just supposed to be designed to where if an intruder were to go and shoot up one of those windows, one of those doors or window doors, it'll take them a while for them to actually penetrate. So it's supposed to slow down an intruder, and hopefully by the time that happens, and first of all, hopefully it never happens here or anywhere else for our kids, but if it were to happen, the entry-resistant film is designed to slow them down to have our emergency management teams there and our police officers there. We also have to do at least twice a year maintenance checks on our doors and fences. So again, making sure that they're working, a lot of our fences also have to have a design to where there's a door latch that you can exit, but nobody can come in. So all those need to be checked twice. And then we have to have a silent panic alert system. So currently we have Raptor, which is on our cell phones. And basically it's designed to where if there is an unsafe situation, a teacher, anybody, or principal, anybody with that app can click on it and it'll alert our police department and also the administrators on that campus. Any questions on those? So this is at least, so yes, it can be done more. This is what the law says, is at least has to be done at least twice a year. Now, originally, when the laws came out, they said, okay, well, we want you to do all these things, but we may not necessarily have money for you. The state did release 2 grants that Duncanville ISD was awarded. So the first grant is the 22-25 School Safety Standards Formula Grant, and the district was awarded $572,000 to cover all the requirements that were there previously, and I just covered in these 2 slides. Now, they gave us that money, but then it was like, well, that's not enough. They released a survey and said, hey, how many of y'all are in compliance? Not many districts were. How much more money do you need? Well, this is what we need. So I'm happy to say that they came back and they gave us a second grant called the 23-25 Safety and Facilities Enhancement Grant, called the SAFE Grant, and that's for $2.8 million. So with that, a total of $3.4 million that the state has released to be able to implement those requirements that were covered, that I just covered in those 2 slides. Any questions on these?
Do these grants include personnel as far as additional security?
So it's limited on personnel. You can pay personnel, like let's say I had to pay someone to work extra to make, let's say I need to pay someone extra to do the fencing. That part is allowed. But to hire a person, no. What they're requiring is to make sure we cover all those things. They're very limited, like you must spend all of this and make sure you are implementing all of this first before you can even consider some things to even do for, like cameras aren't even allowed. Like those aren't, they are on the first grant, but not the second. But they're saying you can't spend any of this money on all these other things that are allowed until you've met the minimum. Now, to give you an example, the fencing is always about $1.5 million. So that's going to take a big chunk. The resist the film, not sure how much it's going to be. We're going to go for an RFP, so request for proposal, to get quotes on those. But a lot of this money is going to be pretty much gone. Fencing kind of surprised us, but again, we're touching every campus. So, any questions on those?
So, in the athletic facility, so we just got some gates put up in the concourse.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have 2 doors that are not, they're just open all day, we can't even close them. So is that part of the grant to get those done, or?
So in a sense, it's not an instructional facility, but we did have vendors come out and look at all the buildings to make sure that we had coverage there. I'm not sure if those 2 were included. I'll double check.
Okay.
I know our team, our maintenance team, did some of those gates themselves. Okay.
What's the time frame? When y'all expecting to start, and how long y'all expecting to do it?
So on the fencing, I can tell you we're looking to go to the board in January and then to get started shortly after. The fencing, because it's exterior, it's really not going to interrupt instruction. So I think we're better off, we're in a good place with that. The window film still needs to go out for proposal. So we're looking probably maybe March. And then again, we're going to work around instruction because we don't want to, for example, there's certain buildings that I think we're good, like we can start on a building without interrupt instruction, but we're going to make sure that that's the case. Any other questions? All right, we're going to cover the School Safety Committee, which Chief Lambert and I are co-chairs. You sure? Go for it.
Chief Lambert with the Duncanville ISD Police Department. For you that do not know that the district has a police department, we do. Been around since 2018. It'd be surprising if there's parents that have had kids go through all up until intermediate and they realize we have a police department. So, School Safety Committee, it's pretty much just like the SHAC, just a different acronym and a different topic. Really all it is made up by community members, staff members, first responders, including the fire department, local police, school police, and other health officials in order to come together as a group to talk about topics involving strictly with safety and structure safety over a district. I'll kind of touch a little bit. I can't obviously speak with too elaborate to what we speak about because we do have to sign a confidential agreement, but I will kind of touch exactly what we kind of cover. Develop and implement emergency plans consist of multi-hazard emergency operations plan, and EOP is a what-if plan, right? So that includes a tornado, train, Fair Meadows is right there by the train track. What happens if a train derails and so on and so forth. So we do come together. It's not just the experts. It's not just fire. It's parents who have a voice, a concern, what if, and we do get a lot of good feedback in reference to our plan. So we do not pretend that we have all the answers. We really do rely on the public. We do rely on the community to really have some input what the concerns about so we can cover all bases.
And some of you on this committee serve on that committee, so it's cross.
Right. And I'm getting tired of looking at you guys. We got to find a different committee. Provide recommendations to the board regarding multi-hazard EOP. So when it comes to any kind of procedures with the EOP emergency plan, MOUs, that type of lingo or nature is that we do bring it to the board so that we are in communication with the board, with the district of what our plans are. We don't do anything in secret. What I like to say is we like to get naked in front of everybody. This is what we're doing. This is the emergency operations plan. This is how we're going to conduct business, so there's not a question about it. We all know we're all on the same page. Provide information required connected to audits and reports. We are audited by the state. I'm not sure if anybody remembers or pays attention to the news, but Governor Greg Abbott did have a audit committee to where they do come in to the districts and check for open doors, locking mechanisms. I know you had a question when it comes to locking. That is the state standard. It does not mean we wait and do it July and August. That's it. We have a standard. In fact, I have a personnel under the police department. All he does is access. He checks access to every building weekly, and we were talking about every day. So even the state says this is what you have to do it. I can assure you we're doing a lot more because we want to make sure that we're ensuring the security of our buildings. Review reports to be submitted. We do have to review the reports that we get from the state. We do speak as a community as well as community members. This is where our results are. This is what we can do better. This is where we're failing. This is where we're succeeding. Consult with law enforcement agencies on methods to increase law enforcement presence near campuses. This is something I have a great relationship with Duncanville Police Department as well as Dallas. I speak with the leaders over there of those departments weekly, including the fire department, to make sure that we're in good communication. It is not us and them. It's not us police and you police. It's we police. So we make sure that we keep that communication going because when we need help, I want them to be there. When they need help, I want to be there as well. So communication is key. So I'm very proud to have that. Go next. Intruder detection audits. Man, I need my glasses bad. Intruder assessments and tests, current access control and visitor management procedures at each facility. This is what I look for as well. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but where staff visible wearing IDs, where classroom doors closed and locked in instruction, were you observed by any staff? Do you have access to classrooms? This also continues with the audits that the state puts on is can they make entry into the school building? When they make entry, what do they see? Do they see a bunch of people walking around, groups in certain hallways, classrooms open, et cetera, that the state wants us to make sure we're on top of? Were you asked if you needed access? That's something once they make entry that we try to work with our staff on our campuses is do not be afraid if you see somebody that looks funny, looks like they shouldn't be there to ask questions. I make a joke about it, but it's always to the district. It is my job to be nosy, okay? You want me to be nosy, and I want the staff members to be nosy. What are you doing on the district? What are you doing on this campus? Exactly. Who are you? Why are you here? Go take your math test. Whatever the case may be, is that these are some of the lines that the audits do take. This is pretty much a checklist, what they do. If we fail, if we need to improve, if we're doing great, they also like to tell us when we're doing great, believe it or not. And they'll send it back to us and say they made the entry to the class or they made entry to the school. This is what they observed. At that point, we take that information, we talk as a committee, we talk to the districts, we talk to the board, and we see what kind of resources can we utilize, how many more personnel, et cetera, of that nature to make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Any questions?
Just on the high school, I can't speak for intermediate and elementary. I know that our current administration is doing a great job as far as being intentional as checking cameras, making sure doors are locked, working with the security team to make sure that we're putting people in key areas where people try to congregate, being intentional on keeping folks out of the hallway and those things. Now, we do have issues, I know in my area, as a point of entry, and it's difficult for us so that first and that last block being that that's athletics, and, we have so much traffic in our areas.
Sure.
During the school day, we can lock that down and make it's a little difficult to be able to lock it down like, like we want to.
Sure.
So I'm saying all that to say, what is there an alternative plan? Is there something that we can do? Is there a better plan, a better way for us to be able to secure our area but still give grant our kids access to our area, especially that way?
Sure, and your area is not the only area. You know, for the high school, I mean, there's 113 doors at the high school. It's over 1 million square feet. It's a mall. You know, it's like kind of trying to guard Parks Mall. It really is. So to answer the question, there is technology and resources that we're looking into with the operations. We're really trying to make our lives easier to be able to monitor that from afar as well, because we know that if we stick a body at a doorway, we're losing a body somewhere else, right? So the staff members, I know the principal as well as the high school staff is, the security staff too that's at the high school is monitoring the situation after school to the case and be that I'm asking that person to work 17 hours instead of 9. You know what I mean? Every single day. Then on top of that, we got football games, basketball, and everything else. So these are all totality of everything that we look into. There is technology out there to get it. Great that the bond passed, so that's some options that we can look at. But we want to utilize the technology that's out there to be able to take that body away from those doors so that we can just monitor them from afar, and so we can utilize those bodies somewhere else. So to answer your question, yes, there is. Now, when these schools were created or these schools were built and technology was built, this was not in mind at all. You know what I mean? The whole saying, well, I used to have my doors unlocked. You know, I used to be able to play until the street light came on. You know, the old saying is, so now what we are doing, we are trying to adapt for what we got. And what I hate saying, I'll never, hardly ever say it, is that I don't want to use any excuses. I don't have the manpower because I'm going to use what I got because I hate using that word. But what we try to do is look to see what other districts are doing, what's working. Just because it's out there to get and you get it doesn't mean it's going to work, right? So we want to invest our tax dollars, our money that we get from the community or from the community to put it in the right spot. So yes, we are looking into that. Does that answer your question? There's light at the end of the tunnel. Trust me, I want to go home and sleep at night knowing that everything's okay because what keeps me up is security, and I know what keeps operations up. Student services, we're all on the same side, just from a different angle. So, any other questions? Cool. Miss Pratt coming down. What's up? How you doing?
Thank you. All righty, I'm going to take just a few minutes to talk to you about our suicide prevention and protocols. So, you may not know this, but suicide is the second leading cause of death for humans aged 15 through 24, according to the World Health Organization. And so our counseling department and all staff really take major precautions to ensure that our students are safe and that we are meeting their needs as far as mental health is concerned. So these are some numbers that we collect on a quarterly basis as it relates to suicide and self-injury. So our counselors, anytime a student says, I want to kill myself or I've been harming myself, they do what's called a risk assessment. And you'll learn a little bit more about that here in a second. But each quarter, I collect the numbers on the amount of risk assessments that our counselors complete. And so you see the numbers for the last 5 years. This year in 23-24, we have numbers for the first quarter. And they're comparable to what you see here. So for the first quarter, our suicide protocols were at 60. We've had 60 suicide protocols just in the first quarter, not up until this date. We'll collect the information for the second quarter at the end of the semester in a few weeks. And then we have had 17 self-harm assessments completed in the first quarter. And so you see the numbers that I just shared with you as they relate here, you see they're comparable. When you look at numbers from 1920, 2021, you see a significant decrease, especially in 2021 because of what? COVID. And so now that we're on campus, our students are struggling. They're struggling mentally and they make outcries. And so we have 12,000 students in the district. These are the students who say something to us, right? So we have students who may be feeling like they want to commit suicide, and they may not say anything, and they may just be suffering in silence. But the ones who do make an outcry and say, I want to kill myself, we have specific measures in place to take care of those students and get them to a better place mentally. And so what you see on your table is our protocol. It is, in the middle of your table, it says Suicide Self-Harm Quick Reference Guide. It's a couple of pages. And this is the document that our counselors use each time a student makes a suicide outcry. It is a 32-step process that our counselors implement every time an outcry is made, no matter if Johnny makes this outcry every day, no matter if we know that he's just trying to get out of class or he just wants to go home, no matter what we think or how we feel about it, our counselors go through this 32-step process each and every time, and we take it seriously, and we ensure that our students get to a better place. And so what you see there, we don't have much time to go through it, but I'm going to give you about 2 minutes just to look through, glance through, highlight anything that stands out to you. The state requires us to have a plan in place for the prevention, intervention, and postvention of suicide. So what you see on that first page is prevention efforts. That is our counselors providing guidance lessons to students. I believe we do that in the month of August, as soon as we come back, or September. As soon as we come back to school, August, we do an introductory lesson, and then all of September, our counselors are doing a mental health suicide prevention guidance lesson for all students. And so those are prevention efforts, and then you see the 32-step process. That's our intervention. So when a student makes an outcry, we go through that 32-step process, and then postvention is what we have in place in the event, God forbid, that a student actually commits suicide. And so I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to answer questions that you have. Okay. Are there any questions I can answer? Anything that stood out to you? Yes,
That's a protocol, y'all basically put the protocol, so we had 60 incidents already this quarter.
that was in the first 9 weeks. That doesn't include the whole semester. So that is from August 10th through the end of the first 9 weeks, I believe was 10/28. So all of November and December are not included in those numbers. So 60 in the first 9 weeks.
Have you seen a trend in what's targeting mental out of control? And the reason I'm asking is because I keep thinking the post effects of COVID in today's youth, we're going to be seeing the
Absolutely.
of that.
Yes.
And again, I'm not an expert in that. That's just my theory as I've been listening and working with students. And so is there
A common theme as to why they're saying it. I can't answer that. I can't answer that because I'm not reading every single assessment that we complete. That's a good question. Just gathering some data around why. I will say that when I talk to counselors and they have extreme cases, it could be tied to, first of all, a lot of the outcries are not necessarily really serious outcries. We do have students that just say it. But then if a student is, a really serious threat to themselves, it's usually tied with some kind of abuse that they may be experiencing or have experienced. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So do you see it happening more with a certain age group, like middle school, high school, which numbers are greater?
The younger students are greater. Our high school students, they have a little bit more, they have a few more coping skills, seem to have more of a support system. So we see it in middle school, I would say the most. But I mean, it's throughout. We have students in elementary, intermediate school that make outcries. I would say the majority, though, lie in that middle school, 7 to 8 range. A very heavy topic to end the night with. But it is, it's a reality. And so we definitely don't want to ignore it. We want to acknowledge it, keep it in mind. The number one thing the number one resource or support that we have to combat is, like Ms. Hudson was saying, we're fueled for connection. And so building those relationships with our students, our teachers building relationships with students, parents knowing how to support students at home socially and emotionally and with their mental health, and making sure that mental health is not a stigma. If your child says, I'm depressed, or I don't feel good, I'm sad, or I have anxiety, they may not know exactly what that means, but getting them to a trained professional to really help them get through what they're dealing with mentally. And so we have Care Solace in the district. It is a care coordination organization. It's an organization that provides care coordination services to students and their families, anyone in their family. And so our counselors and administrators are trained. They make what's called a warm handoff, a referral online, and someone will call them from the Care Solace organization, and they will see to it that they get a mental health therapy appointment. And so that is new in our district. Several other large districts use it. It's been, wonderful for us so far. And so we have the mental health supports in place. We just want everyone to know about them, and we want to use them. So thank you for your time and attention. We'll do the SEL barrier activity next time. I know time is up. Okay. 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 All right. So for our SEL barrier activity, I brought the the, what did we use last time? We identified some barriers as it relates to social and emotional learning. And so those are back on the tables, and everyone was split up into groups. And so what we were going to do today was categorize those barriers, and then we were going to start to come up with solutions to those barriers. And so for the sake of time, we will continue that work next, in our next meeting in February. Right. So we need to do, how much time do we need to take? For how long? Okay. Okay, so what I can do is I can name off the barriers that we came up with, and we can identify categories to put them in. Can you all get together and form one group? Okay. And so you'll just look through these. Okay. And just put those in categories. If he can come up here, Mr. Mitchell. Okay. I don't know. Are they? You don't have to. Mr. Mitchell. And so if you all will. We don't have a group, yeah. So just, if you'll just categorize them. I can throw that away for you. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So whatever categories, whatever, exactly, put them together. Yep, and then we'll come up with category names.
Sexual orientation probably goes, with over here, like friend groups need to belong to, like if you're LGBT,
Family religion, that'll go with it.
family and religion could go with culture. Well,
Three. Thank you. I always think people are gonna hate it because it's so heavy. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But,
It's, yeah.
and as a mom,
Right. Yeah. Okay, about 15 more seconds. Good. we're gonna come up with, okay, wonderful. Awesome. Okay. I was gonna have you give a name to the category. So if you can name the categories, you have 3 categories, what would you name them? And then we will wrap up. Come up with a name, a title for each category. Y'all had some too. Good, how about you? I haven't seen you forever. Running.
In the fast lane.
That's crazy. All righty. Okay. So what categories did we identify? And I'm going to write them up here.
You want me to write them? You got them?
Relationships. Okay. Health. You said health concerns. Okay. Okay, and the third one? Social belonging. Okay. Okay, for this group, what 3 categories did you come up with? Self-view. Okay. Okay. Identity expression. Okay. Okay. And you all said self-view? And then how you express yourself? How you view yourself, how you express yourself. Okay. This group back here? Okay. Okay.
We put like anger management, emotion regulation, outbreak, all that under skills development needs. Like that's the category that they need to develop the skills for these things. So we didn't include it.
Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. No problem. That's on me. That's on me. Okay, so we're going to go with these categories. And so next week, we're not going to call a special meeting, but in February, we will reduce these or consolidate these 6 categories into 3. And then from there, we will come up with solutions to the barriers that we've identified. And then we will go into family engagement barriers. So thank you all so much. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Brown now.
Thank you very much for a successful SHAC meeting. I know we ran a little bit behind time, but thank you everybody for your patience. I just want to remind you, Alec Hawkins, William Mitchell, he's Assistant Director of Athletics, Head Athletic Trainer. They will be leading the subcommittee, so see them if you're interested in joining. We'll be seeking that, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Acosta so he can officially adjourn the meeting at the time that he has on his record.
Meeting is adjourned at 6:14 p.m.